We are visiting with Dr. Ed Hellman, Plant and Soil Sciences, Texas Tech University, and you are in the study of viticulture and enology. Now, just to define these things, viticulture is the science of growing grapes?
Correct.
Okay.
And enology is the science of making wine.
Okay. Realistically speaking, this is a brand new program at Texas Tech University. One of the things we want people to get out of this is the knowledge that it does exist and what kind of career opportunities are available in viticulture and enology, because the grape growing industry and the wine business in the state of Texas has just exponentially grown over the past several years, and it's just very, very, very profitable, very lucrative, and a lot of people are jumping in. So tell us about the science and what's going on.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tom. The Texas wine industry has grown very dramatically in the last 10 years. A lot of new wineries, a lot of new vineyards, and they're looking for trained graduates to hire in managerial positions and production positions. So graduates from our program, actually, we've already got a few graduates in our program working at some of the local wineries like McPherson. They can take winemaking positions, of course, entry-level type positions, but then they work themselves up to a winemaker, a head winemaker type position. Kind of depends a little bit on what their orientation is. If they're more science lab oriented, then perhaps they become what we'd consider an enologist, a true enologist that does more lab work on wine and grape juice than actual production of the wine itself. Some of our students...
Okay, when you say lab work, what do you mean lab work? Are you talking about kind of like cause and effect relationships on how to change the characteristics of how like a grape ferments or something, or what?
Well, there's a lot of chemistry and microbiology involved in winemaking. And so there's analytical work that has to be done to know what's going on in that fermenting grape juice. Is the acid right? Is the pH right? Is anything out of whack? And then, of course, microbiologically, we want to make sure the good microbes, the yeast that are doing the fermentation, are active, and not the bad guys that can make for off flavors.
Nice.
What makes a bottle of wine bad? I mean, we were served a bottle of wine at a restaurant. We took a taste of it, and it was very vinegary and just not good. Mm. What happened in that case?
Well,
it was really bad.
So the
they took it back and gave us another one. But.
Good. Never accept a wine like that.
Yeah.
So the vinegar characteristic is one of those spoilage characteristics. So other microbes, other than the good guys, spoiled that wine and changed some of the components into vinegar rather than the good components that we're looking for. Mm. It could have happened during the winemaking process. It could be that bottle, if they had just freshly opened that bottle, then it happens somehow during the production process. Mm-hmm. But sometimes at restaurants, if you're buying just a glass of wine, that bottle may have been opened for a while.
Right.
And perhaps not stored properly. And so the wine can decline in quality rather quickly in an open bottle. So that could have been the problem.
Now, what makes the climate here so good for grape growing?
Well, we've got a lot of sunlight, a lot of warm weather, which makes for good, very productive vines and also good ripening conditions for the fruit. And the low humidity, low rainfall means we have very little disease and insect pressure. So that can reduce both yield and quality of the fruit, but it also increased production costs. So we really kind of have the whole package out here on the high plains, and that's really why it's the biggest single grape-producing region in Texas.
Huh.
We are here on the South Plains?
On the South Plains.
Yeah,
Wow.
This is huge. Yeah,
I figured it would
really
be like
big.
down in the New Braunfels, Fredericksburg area.
No, that's a great place to sell wine. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the wineries that make wine down there and sell wine to the tourists, The grapes are actually grown up here.
Yeah, they're like importing the grapes from here.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a cool deal. All right, we were kind of joking around about this, but I was just kind of wondering what kind of like lab opportunities are there for students? And Laura's like, do they need volunteer tasters?
That's not as attractive as it sounds, actually.
Laura, I'll try another one.
So actually, what we train the winemakers to be able to recognize, yes, the good flavor and aroma compounds that are in wine, but also the bad ones. So as you described the vinegar smell and taste that you recognized in a wine that you had, you can recognize that at a very early stage in the fermentation process, and then you can intervene and correct that problem. And so one of the classes that we teach it's called sensory analysis, but it's sensory analysis for winemakers. It's not tasting wine for enjoyment. Well, I like this one because of the fruity aromas or whatever. No, it's I'm detecting the characteristic flavors of and aromas of this variety. So we're on track. 2 weeks later, I'm tasting the same wine, but now it has some off flavor, and I recognize what's causing that off flavor, and so now I can go in and intervene and correct that problem before it gets worse.
Gotcha.
And so that's what that kind of technical tasting is like.
Here's my thing. In something like this, I mean, you always see people going, in like talking about like cleansing their palate. Okay, when you're tasting wine and you're analyzing stuff like that, I mean, how do you get your mind honed to that fine working edge where it's like this is ground zero on your taste buds? I mean, because don't you want to start from the same place every time?
Yeah, and it actually is very difficult to be a good taster.
That's the art of it.
Well, that's one of the arts of it. There's a lot of arts involved in winemaking and grape growing, and certainly the ability to first of all the ability to taste and appreciate aromas and flavors varies from person to person a lot, and so what I might taste. One way you might not taste at all, or you might taste at a much lower intensity level, and Laura might not taste it at all. So
I can't taste anything these days. I couldn't even taste dinner last night.
Do a lot of people that taste and stuff like that and analyze this, like in groups and things like that? Because like certain people have certain tendencies, like you say. So do people taste in collective groups on a regular basis? Because so-and-so always picks up this trait or so-and-so always picks up that trait. Does it work that way?
For social events, yes. But not from a technical standpoint, because there's very much of an influence of one person on another.
Right.
If you're in a group setting. And so, it might be subtle. Someone might kind of raise their eyebrows when they first smell a wine, and then it's like, what's wrong with it? But you can easily influence other people in a group, in a tasting session. And so when you're doing a true analytical tasting and it's structured properly, people are separated. Very often they're in booths so that they can't see each other. Actually they'll evaluate the wine in black glasses, drinking glasses, so that you can't prejudge the wine based on its color, because there's a general association with more flavor, better quality
with a deeper color.
And that's not necessarily true. And so if you're trying to analyze a wine for the intensity, flavor, and aroma compounds rather than the color, then put it in a black glass and you can't judge the color.
Oh, that's very smart. How many grapes does it take to go into like one bottle of wine?
How many grapes? Let's see. I don't usually think of it that way. I would guess it probably takes about 25 or 30 pounds.
Wow. That's a lot of grapes.
Yeah,
wow. Yeah, that is.
And we're the largest grape producer in the state, right here.
Right here on the South Plains.
That's
That is
awesome.
amazing. I didn't know that. Do you foresee that possibly like beating out cotton someday? with our farmers or not? I mean, because cotton is huge here.
Right.
Cotton is still king here.
Well, we'd have to drink a lot more wine than we are now.
Yeah, well, I'm working on that. No.
to replace all the acres of cotton with grapes. No.
My friends and I are doing our part.
Very good.
All right, so just kind of in an interesting conversation, by the way, man, enjoy it. But in a nutshell, really, in the Plant and Soil Sciences Department at Texas Tech, whether it's viticulture or enology, which is the science of growing grapes and the science of making wine, basically from lab research to, I guess working in the fields, actually managing, nurturing the vineyard, and the harvesting process. There's so much that goes into that, and making sure that the grapes from harvest to the winery it happens so fast because time and temperature just, are killers, for the quality of a grape.
How do our grapes, how do they compare to like Napa Valley? Because everybody thinks of Napa Valley as being like the of the wine world.
Well, so we tend to grow different varieties here because one of the principles of viticulture is you want to grow varieties that are best adapted to your local environment. And so Cabernet Sauvignon is what Napa Valley is most known for, and we grow quite a bit of that out here, and it does pretty well. But in the last 10 years, what we've seen in the vineyards is growers have started to experiment more and have actually shift a lot of their production to varieties that are better adapted to our warmer climate. We're a lot warmer than Napa Valley is. And so what we see is a whole slew of varieties that are probably a little less familiar to the average consumer, but in reality make better wine because those varieties are better adapted to our growing conditions.
Is 2015 shaping up to be a good year?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
The vines
We're early on in the year.
The vines are still dormant, which is good with this crazy weather that we've been having. So they can stay dormant for a while yet, and
Good.
hopefully we'll miss any spring frost events.
Yeah, so no damage so far.
No, not so far.
Good.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to find out what's in the program at Texas Tech University Plant and Soil Sciences and Viticulture and Enology, can they find that online, look it up on the website? Where do they go?
Yeah, so on the Plant and Soil Science website at Texas Tech, you can find a link to our program or the direct address for our website, the Viticulture and Enology program website, is pretty simple. It's grapesandwine.ttu.edu.
Ah, easy.
There you go.
Hey, man, fascinating discussion. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
A lot of job opportunities there.
There are.
We'll have you back sometime.
Okay, very good. Enjoyed it.
Bring some grapes with you.
Will do.
Bring
Thank
some
you.
wine with you.
Dr. Ed Hellman, Plant and Soil Sciences, Texas Tech University.